Welcome to the Broadband Catalyst video help series. This video is a guide to the context layers included in your GIS map.
When you receive your map from Broadband Catalysts, you will have several layers that you're expecting, including your community anchoring institutions and your unserved hexagons and things like that. However, you may also notice you have a section of layers called context layers. And you can consider this video kind of a guide to what those layers are and what they have in them. Here you can see I have a map open. This is North Carolina, and I have Halifax County open, and I'm going to zoom into that to show you some examples of what your map has. Okay, I have turned off the layers that were there other than the county outline and the state outline, just so we can have like a blank slate to start. The layers in your context grouping, they have been taken from several different sources, but most of them come from government platforms such as the U.S. Census Bureau, the USDA, the CDC, the National Geospatial Database, things like that. So this is really a collection of different data sets to give an idea, some more context to the area. Within your grouping of context layers, which I have highlighted on the screen, there are several other groups. These include healthcare or health outcome information. There's a group of layers that are about the income or population traits. You have a group of layers that have to do with power, electricity, and oil, as well as devices and service and transportation. There's several other layers that are not in a group. These are points of interest or just other types of layers that have been included. As a reminder, when you are using QGIS, you can use your scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and to zoom out, as well as clicking your mouse wheel in and holding it down will allow you to drag the map as you need to. You can also use the toolbar across the top to help you pan the map or zoom in or zoom out. Most layers in your context layers have labels or visualizations, and they may just require you to zoom in or zoom out to be able to see that. Oops, I turned all those on, didn't mean to. So here you can see I have turned on the percent of the census tract with depression. And there's a count of how many fall into each bucket over here on the right. But also if I zoom in, I can get the exact number once I get close enough. So if you're not seeing a label that you think should be there, try zooming in a little bit, and if it's still not there, check out our video on adding labels, or you can simply right click and go to show labels, and it's possible the right one will show up. With that, let's just take a look at what we've got. I'm going to start in the healthcare layer, and like I said, this one is the percentage of the census tract that is diagnosed with depression. This information, if you want to see where it comes from, if you will right click on the layer and go to properties, and you go up to the information tab, most layers will have a short description under the identification section, and they will also have, I'm going to scroll down quite a bit here, they also have at the bottom links that go directly to the place that either the data came from or that explains the usage of the data. So these healthcare layers have information from the USDA Food Access Research Atlas, the CDC Places data, which is a project by the CDC to collect different types of health information and put them in one place, and the American Community Survey results on computer use. So this layer is actually what a lot of the health and devices layers are visualized on. So you might see the same description several times because they might be combined with other types of information. Okay. So other things that we have in our health grouping, I'm going to go ahead and turn off this one. We also have the percent track with disabilities, as well as the most prevalent disabilities. So if I uncheck this one, this actually breaks down into cognitive and mobility as being the two top disabilities in most counties. Okay, another layer that we have is the most common preventative care. If you scroll in enough, you'll see cholesterol screening is usually what pops up, and the least common preventative care is usually preventative care for older women. Then you also have mental and dental and primary care locations in the county. So those were our healthcare layers. I realize I did miss this layer up here. It's the National Address Database. And what this actually has is a calculation of the distance from the main road to the location. So if I turn that layer on and I drop down this arrow, you can see what the different color dots mean. So if I turn off the green and the pink and I leave the red dots, the distance in feet to the road is 500 or more feet. And when you get to that distance from the road, deploying broadband gets a lot more expensive. So that can be very useful in your planning stages. All right, I'm going to go ahead and come down to the income and population grouping. And I'm just going to go from top to bottom here. I do have a flag for low income, low access according to USDA. These are places that don't have access to a healthy way to get food. In an urban area, there's different markers, but in an urban area, usually they're at 1/2 or 1 mile. And then in rural areas, that's anywhere from 10 to 20 miles. So the areas, when I turn that on, that are striped purple, those are places where it can be hard to get food. It's considered a low income, low access area for food. Okay, in this grouping, we also have the most common language spoken other than English. You can see the key here. Most is Spanish. We do have an Asian Pacific Islander language in the eastern northern side of Halifax County here. If you zoom in also, those will pop up the labels. Okay, we have two layers that are median household income. One of these comes from the American Community Survey, and one comes from the Food Atlas, Access Research Atlas. So you can look at what those tell you. If you zoom in, it will give you the exact numbers for the census tract areas. Here we have an area with 27, 30, 43, surrounding an area of 57. There's also a higher level over here, 59, and then 53. Okay, if I switch that to the Food Atlas, you can see some of those areas are missing because the data just wasn't included in that data set for whatever reason. But again, we can come in and look at what the median household income was according to that data set. And usually it's pretty close to what the American Community Survey reported as well. And if you want to make these take up less room, you can always click that arrow again to make it collapse. Okay, One more thing that I have here is a marker for persistent poverty. This is a county level marker. So I'm actually going to switch to the North Carolina. Well, this is more than just North Carolina. This is the United States. But I believe I have this trimmed to the state. Let's see. Yeah. So here in the state of North Carolina, you can see that there's two groups of counties that are considered in persistent poverty. And that definition, I believe, is being more than 20% of the county being in poverty for a certain amount of years. If you want more information on that, again, you can go to properties, come down to the links area, and you can go to the link and find more information about that data set if you like. And then I'm going to stay on this larger map for this one as well, and it's the percentage of the county considered to be in poverty. If I zoom in, there's labels. So the lighter the color, the lower the number. Anything red is 20 or above, and dark red is 20, 25 and above. But you can kind of see the different patterns that emerge when you look at an overall view such as that. Okay, I'm going to switch back to my Halifax County map. And you can see that in this map that's got one number in it because that's one county. Now, as far as like the usefulness of the health and the income information, that can be important. The income and population characteristics can have a direct effect on healthcare, and the health information can help you identify ways that telehealth could help in that area, but broadband is needed to get the telehealth into that area. So depending on who you're working with and what your end goals are, those can be really useful bits of information. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the power and oil. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck everything real quick. Layers. Now, when it comes to this, electric territories, they can be useful for understanding or finding who owns the utility poles in an area. So that could be useful for your deployment. They also can be helpful to know if there is a pipeline or a transmission line that can be followed that's already existing. That can reduce the cost of deployment, so you're not having to build your own towers and things like that. Conversely, if you are in an area where there are wind turbines, which there are not in Halifax County according to the data sets, obviously you wouldn't be running a tower straight through those. So it's just helpful in the planning stages, right? So in the power and oil grouping, there's some counties have offshore wind production areas. There are markers for power plants that are solar powered as well as wind powered. And then there's a marker for power plants in general. And you can see when I turn those on, their names popped up. And if you look at the key here, you can see the different colors. This green color here is as batteries. The yellow is biomass. The purple is petroleum. So you just kind of a look at what different sources are used to power the power plants in the area. If you want to visualize that on a different field, go ahead. And if something else is more useful for you, absolutely, go ahead and do that. And then we have the electric power transmission lines. Halifax County does not have any of the pipelines. Let's take a look at our larger map. And for example, like here's my electric power transmission lines. Hydrocarbon gas liquid pipeline is right here. This pink line is popping up. And interstate pipelines for gas, petroleum, right there. And then we do also have the electric territories. Okay, a couple more sections. Here we have devices and service. For the state of North Carolina, this has the North Carolina Broadband Survey. Let me go back to the county real quick. Sorry, guys. Okay. For the devices and service group, in North Carolina, we have the North Carolina Broadband Survey results. And what these dots represent is answers, people who have responded to the North Carolina Broadband Survey. The answers that are in green, those have access to broadband and it's working. Those in red do not. So you can see that's a pretty even split in this county. In the North Carolina Broadband Survey, no cell service. There actually was a question in that survey about cell service, and so the red triangles are areas that answered there was not cell service for them. We also have the Ookla speed test. If you Google an internet speed test, most likely you're taking an Ookla speed test or a Measurement Lab speed test. And these are the results from one of those from the Ookla. And so you can kind of get an idea of where are the areas of not great service and where are some areas that are having positive speed tests. That the green again represents that broadband is available and working correctly, and the red it is not. Or if it is there, it's not getting the speeds that it's supposed to. And again, from the American Community Survey, that some of the other information came from, there is a percentage of households that have no internet and a percentage of households that have no computer. So if we look at that in this area down here, we're at more than 50% don't have internet. Here, still a pretty high percentage, no internet. So if we turn back on the other information, we can actually see that there's not a whole lot of green markers in these areas. And then we can also look at the percentage that don't even have a computer. Now it looks like a higher percentage have a computer that don't have the internet, but that's still 20% or more of an area not having a computer is, to me, it's surprising. And then your mobile voice, 4G mobile broadband and 5G mobile broadband, these data sets come from the FCC, and this is the places where people are saying, or the providers say, yeah, there's service there. Okay, so you can explore those at your leisure. Those are the devices and service layers. And one last grouping we have is transportation. The first two layers here are about driving more than 30 minutes to work. The first is just the number, and the second is the percentage of the population that number is. So here we can see that I didn't turn on labels. This is the number of people. There shouldn't be a decimal there. Let's see. Labels. This is the total population. There. Now that is the number of people who drive No, that is the total population. Just kidding. Let me try that again. That is a total population that drives 30 minutes or more to get to work. And then underneath that is the percentage of the population. I'm going to turn those labels on again. That drive 30 minutes or more to get to work. So these dark blue areas are really high percentages. They are, 45 to 60% of people who live in these areas drive more than 30 minutes to get to work. We also have the National Bridge Inventory, and this has a lot of information in it. If we look at that attribute table, you can look like each structure has its own number. It has a description. It has its location and the number of traffic lanes, the year it was built. So there's a lot of information here, but what I have visualized for you is the underpasses and the overpasses. So the pink dots on top, those are underpasses, and the larger blue dots are the overpasses. Or if you want to see every single bridge, no matter if it's underpass, overpass, or whatever, you can just look at the National Bridge Inventory. There's also a National Tunnel Inventory, a layer for transit stops, bus stops, airports, alternative fueling stations. If that is an important layer to you. And then historical bridges. Not everywhere has a historical bridge, but in the National Bridge Inventory, in column 37, if it is a 1 or a 2, then it's a historical bridge, or it qualifies as a historical bridge, even if it hasn't been designated. Right, so that was our transportation group. And now we're going to look at these individual points of interest. We have grocery stores. This comes from the OpenStreetMap data, and it is OpenStreetMap data that is identified as grocer, supermarket, health food, and food. Okay, we have our individual cemeteries. If you scroll in, the names of those cemeteries will pop up. City town halls, courthouses. So there's one Halifax County courthouse right here. Post offices, again, if you zoom in, your names of post offices will pop up. Lakes and major rivers, which it looks like kind of parts of the county lines are rivers. And then we have some other layers. We have flood hazard lines and areas. So they pop up when you turn them on. And then there's an average wildfire hazard. And the higher the number, the higher the risk of wildfire and the risk to people. So what this layer actually does is it takes information from the wildfire hazard concerning natural fuels, and it combines it with demographic data to approximate the risk to populated areas. The wildfire hazard, the flood hazard areas, those are areas that you might want to consider infrastructure insurance, or do you need to consider, building in another area simply because you don't want a natural disaster to be taking out your broadband when the weather turns. Okay, and one more layer that I'd like to talk about here is the National Walkability Index. And this is actually an index that was created by the EPA to help encourage smarter building in cities to make things more walkable. So the key here is the orange with the lower scores. Those are the least walkable areas, and the most walkable areas have the higher scores, I believe. It is up to 12. It might be up to 15. Let's check it out. Oh, up to 20, my bad. So, on a scale of 1 to 20, um, how walkable is an area? Okay, and if you like all the information that's here and you want to keep it and add a layer, you can do that. Let's say if you wanted to have another layer to focus more specifically on a particular health outcome, and you want to use this data set, but you also want to keep this visualization, you can right click and use the duplicate layer option. And then you can go in and change the visualization, change the labels, but you're not losing that original visualization either. I hope you found this guide through the context layers helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, info@broadbandcatalysts.com, and keep an eye out for updated versions of your map.
I hope you found this video helpful. If you still have questions, feel free to email us or check out the rest of our help playlists.